Hello everyone, and welcome to my talk today, which is called Hack to the Future, AI and Content Design. I'm Marianne Knowles, and I'm very happy to be Principal Content Designer at Co-op and have such a brilliant team to work with there, but more on that later. First, I'd like to start by asking you all a question about the Back to the Future film. And there are some things that people thought the film was about. Some people thought it was about being open to our limitations so we can learn from it. Others thought it was about fate. And others thought it was a chance to have fun with ideas about how things might happen in the future. And I'd like to know what you think. So who thinks it's about being open to our limitations so that we can learn from it? Put your hand up. Maybe one. Anyone think it's about fate? Oh, we're playing with fate. And a chance to have fun with ideas about the future. Oh, it's interesting. All three? I think it might be a bit of all three. It was really interesting. Thank you very much, everyone, for answering. I think in terms of limitations, I think that there are things that slow us down now, and there are ways to plug the gaps. Fate, I don't think any AI is down to divine intervention, but I do think it's here to stay and unavoidable. And in terms of a chance to have fun with ideas about how things happen in the future, I do think it is genuinely exciting, and there's lots of opportunities, and it also really reminds us of what we bring as humans as well, which I'll come to in a little while. So keeping with the Back to the Future film, I studied AI as part of my undergraduate degree in the early 2000s when I had a phone a bit like the one at the top there. And AI, the way it was being talked about then, was very theoretical. And I could not have imagined that just over 20 years later, despite experiences in tech, in marketing, in comms and in business, that we'd have anything like how AI works with content generation in ChatGPT. Well, there it was in 2022. And around that period, I was doing talks and presentations about whether it was any good or not, but we didn't really know what to do with it in a product sense. Back to 2024, and GPT-4o is launched, and it's much better. And lots of other AI development is catching up too. So we're now seeing at Co-op lots of AI projects popping up all over the place, and I'm sure that's the same with lots of other organisations as well. And this isn't just discussing it as an idea, this is actually building stuff with it. And they're not all content, but some of them are. So today, I'm going to start by talking about the context at present day Co-op. I'm going to talk about the challenges, the opportunities in future content design skills, as well as future AI content design needs. I'm also going to mention one thing I think we all must do. So my aim by the end of this talk is that you'll know more about how we can shape content design and AI together. And I realise that in the room, there's lots of people from UX design and other function backgrounds. Thank you for that quiz at the beginning, that really helped this. But content is such a big part of the user experience. And I hope this will bring you some better understanding of the landscape with content design and give you some talking points to take away to your organisation. And I really do think that the approach itself, in terms of the skills, are applicable across the board for the design as well. There are lots of different AI applications I could talk about today, and I do mention some, but I have focused on GPT-4o a lot, and that's because I think it offers a really interesting, well-developed and easy to access case study of a generative AI content model. So we can't predict what's going to happen next, but we can research the possibilities to help prepare. So thinking of that, I want to acknowledge that there is a lot out there, and I've looked at a lot of different sources and reports, which I enjoy doing as part of my job. I want to say there is a bit of a lack of diversity within resources that rank highest. That's beyond the scope of this talk, but I do think it supports the need for open and inclusive conversations like the one we're having today. And I also think it's really interesting that when a lot of the people that are speaking on podcasts and in different forums were asked about skills, it was the abilities based on being human that got most talked about and were most valued. I also want to acknowledge how much we've talked about AI and content design as a team at Co-op. Many of the things I talk about today in terms of skills, for example, are things we've reviewed at content away days and evolved through feedback as well. So a bit about the Co-op content design team. We work in multidisciplinary teams across Co-op, in teams like insurance, we have a discovery team, we have membership, food, and funeral care. I work across all of them as content design principal, but my home product team is funeral care, the same team as Helen Lawson, who did a really great talk here last year as well. And we are really lucky to have such a great team of content designers, and it's well established as a team as a result of lots of past and current team effort as well. And there's really a passion for helping people and doing the right thing, so I think we've got a really good base. Now, for some people, it might seem counterintuitive to be talking about building content design teams and skills when you have AI. But what I'm hoping this talk will show is why it's more important than ever to include content designers when you're creating or talking about AI-driven content even. I think it's important to remember how generative AIs and models learn when it comes to content production. And that's from huge amounts of data, which it analyses to realise the difference between words and sentences and the relationships between them. It does all this without the emotional context, and it's also using the structure of written language, even though it has a conversational frame. And it does all this to mimic human intelligence, but it is different to the way that humans use and create language. Humans learn language through immersion in language, an innate grammatical ability, and years and years and years of cues and clues from intonation, facial expressions, and body language. This is Frank, my very energetic 4-year-old. It was taken last year at his grandpa's 80th birthday, and already I think that he could negotiate for the UN, but it'll take many, many more years of context before he's got enough knowledge to be able to publish anything in writing or communicate properly. And as content design, we have many more experiences and resources that we can add in. So yeah, I think all of these skills place content designers in a really good position when it comes to AI, because there are challenges that we can really help with. And here are a couple of examples of them. One challenge is having access, time, and governance available for tools. So this means being able to access tools like GPT-4o, using AI plugins for tools like Figma, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and using products like Mirth, which generate voice content. But there are many, many more options. And it's not always easy to get access to these in large organizations quickly. And once you've got them, it takes time to learn how to use them as well. We have guidance around security and not putting sensitive or personal information into generative AI models, but it really is an emerging area of governance. The challenge is how we make sure there's a right balance of people and different expertise involved in developing those policies so that we can use the tools. I'm going to sneak 2 challenges into this slide on sustainability and bias, but I do promise that there's a link between them. I asked GPT-4 to explain the difference between using ChatGPT and an internet search to find out the answer to something and generate something in terms of energy demand. And the article and the response references what's universally accepted, that using an LLM for a query could consume between 5 and 30 times the energy compared to a simple Google search or loading a web page, for example. So there's a sustainability challenge here already, without it including that there are about 400 chemicals that go into a particular kind of AI chip, and that you need tons of water as well as energy to keep the AI data centers cool. But we'll leave that there. Another challenge here is really in the detail, and it's the qualification that I've highlighted in green. However, it says, the total environmental impact can still be controlled through efficiency optimizations in data centers and AI algorithms, which is quite a mouthful. What I think is interesting is that the model can't decide to defend itself on its own. It doesn't have a brain or judgment, and it's not an author. So what's highlighted in green there is due to a parameter, which is a rule or a principle that the AI is using to make sure that that's presented. And I think this really highlights that we don't know what parameters are being put into generative AI and who's putting them in. And if we're now building the AI, we need to merely make sure that we're aware of our biases and that it's representative and fair as well. The reason that I put the challenges first is that they underpin a lot of the opportunities as well in terms of the future of content design skills that we all need. And one opportunity is mapping expectations of different skills at different levels. This is something we do as a design leadership scheme at Co-op. So we map what you might need to be an associate content designer, a content designer, a lead, or a principal. And we're always evolving that so that people have an expectation of how they can progress. But what we really need to do, and what we're doing, is mapping AI skills onto that so that we can then think about how we enable that learning. And that includes building expertise around content design, like knowing when generative AI versus search is a better solution to a problem. And this goes back to what Andy was talking about at the beginning. Is AI the right solution for this problem, or is it because you just fancy trying something that's exciting? I do think there's an argument for working with people in partnership to try things out, but if it's something that you're going to put a lot of time and money into, you really need to make sure that it's the right solution to the problem that you've got. We are seeing people using AI for things which is not the right choice in some cases. I think it's really important to know about prompts and parameter design for AI models due to the reasons I've just highlighted, and also being able to analyse the output from AI-generated content design and explain why it is or isn't acceptable, and that goes back to knowing your guidelines and principles inside out as well. I think it's really important to understand the sustainability considerations for the amount of energy demand that AI takes. Again, go back to Andy's examples of all the things the wonderful Hoover can do. Like, is it necessary compared to the energy demand that's going to take and all the data transfer that's going to involve? And I also think it's really important that we can contribute to content design principles around AI as well. In terms of content strategy, I think there's lots of opportunity for AI to contribute to that through things like personalised content, predictive analytics, and adding modular and voice content into plans to achieve our goals through content design. Some of these things are already part of what we do, but I think it's the way they fit together that AI can help with, and they're going to become more and more prevalent due to the way that the information is tagged and organised when we're using some of these content solutions. I think we also have an opportunity to save time if we can, and that's by using broader AI tools for things like producing outlines, assessing research, creating workshop ideas in Miro, and finding options when we're stuck. So I would never take something out of GPT-4o and put it straight onto a web page. I wouldn't. But if you've been stuck for 10 minutes with a headline, it might just give you some options that you can then use your expertise to make better. So what does this mean for the day-to-day working and our approach for the future of AI and content design and what we need to do? I think it means even more collaborating. So building AI tools of engineering in a different way and at different stages than we currently collaborate. I think it means working with our optimization and product teams to figure out how we can use AI better for measurement and improvements. And I think it means more sharing knowledge inside and outside the team. I'm hearing about all sorts of different teams doing work that's relevant to us, and I've never heard of them before. So I think it shows how important that is. We need space, not this kind of space. This is an AI-generated image, which I'll come back to shortly. But I do think we need thinking time and space as well. And that space to talk about AI through communities of practice and away days, so that when we don't understand something, we can ask for help and figure out our approach together. I think it's space for choice. It's very likely that our roles will broaden. So some people might want to focus on the kind of content design now, others might want to go into prompt design and building tools. And teams are going to need a real combination of people with different skills, which is a real opportunity for people to decide what direction to go in. I always think it's better for people and we get better results if people have choice about how they develop as well. As I mentioned earlier, I think we also need space at the table to think about governance. We should be collaborating as content and design experts with experts in data and technology. Our competitors are peers are using AI, and it's essential that we're involved in that policy. So yeah, we can make sure that it's secure, but we can also make sure it's enabling for us to do our roles and to produce those user experiences as well. we also need to build our core strengths around some of these things. And I've highlighted some of the human elements here. And the reason I've done that is because when I was listening to all the different podcasts and generally when I'm doing research about these things, watching lots of YouTube videos and talking to people, it's the human elements that people mention more often than any other technical skill. And that includes being aware of how AI is influencing other design and product disciplines. We might be, need to be prepared to use our skills in different ways. Things might change often and unpredictably, and it's going to take a lot of resilience as individuals and also as teams as well. And I think we really, really need to trust ourselves and our human abilities, specifically when we're thinking about what's needed and how we can use our human skills in this space. I think storytelling and showing our value will become even more important as well, specifically being able to articulate our position in terms of AI and our value in terms of our partnership with it as well. I don't think any of these things are so different to what we do now, but I think it's how we apply it and how often we're going to have to review our approach and keep iterating that really is going to be the difference and what we can prepare ourselves well for. I want to acknowledge that the biggest challenge of all is balancing current content design demand, which is high and a really positive thing, with the time to think about and develop new skills. That's really a challenge, I think, for a lot of people. And it's not a straightforward or linear job. And that's why I think we need the whole UX and technology communities to be shaping the future of AI and content design together. So today I've talked about the challenges and opportunities around content design and AI, as well as some examples of future skills and how we'll need to work. So if you're a content designer or if you're a UX designer or a member of a product team, can you ask if content designers are involved in developing AI models, if AI generated content is accurate and representative, if AI is the right way to solve the content problem or any other problem you're trying to solve, and if sustainability is a factor in AI decisions. And can you think about whether you and your teams have access to the right tools and the time they need to develop AI skills? Do they have clear expectations around AI skills at different levels? And can you learn more from other design disciplines or functions and organisations? And can we all do one thing? And that's really to trust in our humanity and empathy. Quite like a good icon, as you can probably tell from this presentation. And this one here is a standard heart icon on PowerPoint. And I asked ChatGPT 4.0 to generate a professional illustration of a heart for a presentation, and it gave me this. Maybe I didn't use quite the right request. So I was more specific about the kind of illustration and tone. I tried asking it to use DALL-E GPT, which is now part of ChatGPT, and I went through a few different versions. And some are quite sweet, but not quite right. I think this just shows how easy it is for Gen AI to misunderstand instructions and how important it is to check whether what comes out of it is appropriate and whether it feels right or not. There's a big difference between how the heart on the left and the one on the right makes us feel. And as a content designer and part of the UX community, I think that's really important. I hope you can tell that AI and content design and sustainability are things that I'm really, really interested in and always happy to answer questions about and chat about anytime. I'm hoping to get an AI and content design group going this autumn. It's something I've wanted to do for a while. So please do reach out if you're interested in that or you know anyone else that is. I'm always happy to hear from people on email or on LinkedIn. Our content design and accessibility guidelines are open access on our experience library, and our digital blog has all sorts of UX design insights. One of our content designers, Joe Wheatley, has just published a blog about AI and content design in partnership with a data science team at Co-op. So if it's something you're interested in, I'd recommend you have a look at that. I want to say a massive thank you to Andy and Sarah for inviting me to speak here today. And a huge thank you to all of you for caring about the future of content design and IA as well. You've been a lovely audience. Thank you very much.